Hello, welcome to today's take. I'm Ding Hen. Partisan politics and individual political calculations seem to be the main driver of a series of last-minute moves by Donald Trump's foreign policy team. As they try to inflict as many diplomatic troubles as possible for Biden, they are in effect exporting a lot of chaos and instability to the international community. Trump has abolished most of Barack Obama's legacy in normalizing the ties between Washington and Havana. Biden, who as the vice president has endorsed President Obama's engagement with Cuba, plans to renew this relationship. So the Trump administration's redesignation of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism is a clear attempt to set roadblocks. In his re-election campaign, Donald Trump has reached out to Cuban Americans by misleadingly claiming that the Democrats, including Joe Biden, would bring communism to the United States. This particular strategy eventually helped Trump win the state of Florida. Now, by taking a step further in a hardline policy against Havana, the Trump administration is indeed looking to cement the Cuban Americans' support for Republicans in the state. After all, Florida will always remain as a key state in future elections in the United States. Announcing the redesignation, the Trump administration cited Havana's refusal to extradite a coterie of Colombia guerrilla fighters, commanders back to Colombia, as well as Havana's support for Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. This former issue led to a significant escalation of tensions between Colombia and Cuba last year. On another front, there is open hostility between Colombia and Maduro. Colombia has long accused Nicolas Maduro of harboring rebel fighters as well as crime gang members. So Cuba's support for Maduro is another source of frictions, let's say, between Havana and Bogota. Having now labeled Cuba as a sponsor of terrorism, Washington is actually further compounding this tense geopolitics involving these three American nations. In China policy, the Trump administration has crossed a red line by lifting long-standing restrictions on contacts between American and Taiwan officials. Although Biden could easily reverse this particular diplomatic move, doing so will provide Biden's political rivals with an excuse to attack Biden for being too weak on China. So President-elect Biden will face a tough choice between returning to diplomatic normalcy and yielding to bipartisan consensus to be tough on China. What is even more worrying is that this particular move is sending a misleading message to Taipei that Washington can afford to abandon its one China policy. Judging from the active response on the part of Taipei, the move is instigating the pro-independence Tsai Ing-wen administration in Taiwan to do even more to challenge this one China principle. This, as a result, is paving the way for more geopolitical tensions across the Taiwan Strait. And then, amid widespread criticism against Saudi Arabia among the Democratic Party, Biden has pledged to end American support for Saudi Arabia's war in Yemen. This is at least in part why the Trump administration has decided to label Yemen's Houthi rebels as a terrorist organization. The designation is providing some kind of legitimacy in supporting the Saudis. So if Biden wants to end U.S. support and roll back the designation, his political opponents can simply accuse him of being too weak or too soft on the issue of terrorism. However, the Trump administration, by doing so, is actually turning a blind eye to the fact that today's Yemen represents one of the world's worst humanitarian crises following many, many years of civil war. This terrorism organization designation is pushing Yemen closer to a massive famine, as humanitarian organizations will find it more difficult to deliver life-saving products, including food, to local civilians. Now, according to the UN's top humanitarian official, the move is likely to push up the cost of food in Yemen by as much as 400%. Now, there are many signs that it is Secretary Mike Pompeo rather than Donald Trump himself who has pushed forward these 11th hour foreign policy decisions. Since the start of the new year, Mike Pompeo has been on a frenzy on his official Twitter account, touting what he claims were his accomplishments as the top American diplomat. Now, Pompeo seems to be positioning himself as the most, let's say, authentic inheritor of Trumpism through an attempt to cement the foreign policy legacy of his boss, Trump. After all, too much has been said about the possibility of Pompeo running for office in 2024. Former Singaporean leader Lee Kuan Yew once said, "The world has developed because of the stability that America has provided." In a stark contrast, however, the final days of the Trump administration is showing everybody how a domestic fight politically inside the United States could create disasters not only for this country itself, but also for the rest of the international community.